Three other good practices, very good practices, are to look where your thoughts, where your breath, and if you're doing a chanting, where the chant comes from. Just try to get to the front end of it if you can, and try to see where it arises from, or try to see where it goes to. Any of those are extremely powerful practices. My teacher, Ramana Maharshi, who many of you probably recognize, probably the sage of the 20th century, was... Can you back out of that one? Can you back out? Okay. I had been in silence for 11 years. He woke up at 16, went into a cave in South India, wonderful, beautiful cave, and for 11 years didn't talk. Nothing was on cable, actually, what it was. But he did not talk for 11 years. And this Sanskrit pandit, a pandit's knows a lot of information, a big scholar, had done a billion repetitions, supposedly, of what they call japa mantra, which is reciting the name of God over and over and over again. The belief is if you do this enough times, you'll become awakened. He had done it 1 billion times. I didn't count him. He couldn't figure it out. He ran up, not yet, I'm sorry. He ran up the hill to see Ramana. He was sitting in the cave 11 years, saying nothing. This guy runs up the hill one fall afternoon, trailed by his followers, saying, "What can I do? I don't have any idea what I'm doing here. I've been doing all these practices, learned all this stuff. I cannot get awakened." What is practice? Tapas is the word in Hindi. And what Ramana said after a few seconds of pausing and answering him was this: if you inquire and observe where the I thought arises from, the mind gets absorbed in that. That is tapas. While performing mantra japa, this billion things, just see where the sound of the mantra comes from. The mind gets absorbed in that. That is tapas. This Sanskrit pandit was so amazed by this, woke up immediately, and renamed him from Venkataraman to Ramana Maharshi. Next one. So I'd encourage you those practices. The Gita verses that I was chanting for our 2 little breaks was I do nothing, even while seeing, hearing, touching, smelling, eating, moving, sleeping, breathing, speaking, letting go, holding on, opening and closing the eyes is just the sense organs moving amongst the sense objects. If one lets go of attachments to your actions, they are not touched by sin, karma, or problems. Just as a lotus leaf is not touched by water. This is my book. I'm not pitching it to sell it. Those of you who are authors know you don't make any money on books. Plus any profits go to kids in South India who are orphaned or handicapped, so don't worry about it. Any questions? I've got like 2 minutes of questions. He's right there. Yeah. Where's the microphone? Oh.
You mentioned that you had a lot of yoga and meditation for many years before you had a particular awakening.
For this one, yeah.
Could you describe a little bit about, was it truly sort of, it sounds like you were going along here for 20 years and then you had a...
Oh, no. The very first awakening, I was at graduate school. I had near-death experience, military, came up to graduate school in the 70s. I was just looking at everything I got my hands on. And I was sitting out in front of the admin building at lunchtime, opened up a book of poetry, read the first line of a poem, and the world just opened up. I didn't know what it was. I didn't know anything about it. I turned to the book. It was Zen, book of Zen poetry. Turned out it is probably the most famous Zen poem. I was clueless. I couldn't even spell Zen. And I didn't know what most of the words meant in that first line. But for whatever reason, I wasn't doing acid or anything. It just opened up. The world just completely opened up. And then after about half an hour, it closed back down again. And so that started the process. And I did yoga so I could sit more. I was really a Zen person for a long, long, long time. Many of my teachers were big Zen names. But there were, along the way, many things happened. But nothing that was permanent. It just, it was, and then it would close back down again. More frustration. But then eventually, it did flip over.
I'm just curious, what does it suggest to you that Ramana came back after 11 years?
Well, he said later that it wasn't because he was maunas, of vowed silence. There are all kinds of strange, if you've been to India much time, there are all kinds of really extreme practices people go into, hand arm over their head for 20 years, etc. And there are people who take vows of silence for decades. He wasn't doing that. He was just not moved to speak. He was certainly fluid to speak after that, but he just didn't speak.
I have this notion of playing with other gods, gods at play, if you want to call it that. And I just wonder if that has something to do with it.
It could be. That's a neat cave. If you ever get a chance, if you've ever been to Tirupanamalai, I encourage you to go to that Virupaksha cave. I don't know. He didn't talk about it that way, but it's a powerful place. Yeah, in the back there. Either one.
So the first experiment that you had us do, looking at whether our thoughts came from the past, the present, or the future, I just want to make an observation that for me, the thoughts were in a kind of a subjunctive space that seemed to be, I don't know if it's it wasn't part of the past and it wasn't the future. I don't know if it's part of the present, but kind of a what if what he's saying means this? What if the chant is saying that? And it seems like kind of a category that's not quite about present moment awareness in the sense of present, but it's not any of the other categories either.
Yeah, we always get into this discussion because there are ones that are right at the cusp of now. And if you look at them really carefully, you find even the subjunctive ones are very quickly just what just happened. You're just seeing the chant. You record the chant comes in. There's a processor in most people that arises to listen to the chant. Actually, there's no listener, but different discussion. But you can watch that move very quickly, and just like that, it's off into thought again. So it's really just if you can move to the front of who hears, which is I did practice for a long time. Who hears, you can deconstruct that whole process. You can stop the who, and it falls away, and then there's just a sound there. Okay. Thank you all.